Germany, the largest economy in Europe and a global manufacturing hub, is facing a series of challenges rooted in its historical reliance on Russian energy. The economic fallout of the Russia-Ukraine war and growing political instability. The crisis has shaken the foundations of a nation once seen as a pillar of European stability and economic strength. Energy dependency and economic turmoil. For decades, Germany's industrial base relied on cheap natural gas from Russia. Before the Russia-Ukraine conflict began in February 2022, approximately 55% of Germany's natural gas supply came from Russia, much of it transported through the Nord Stream pipeline network. This infrastructure, consisting of Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, ran under the Baltic Sea and served as a critical energy artery for Western Europe. However, on September 26, 2022, explosions severely damaged Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, rendering 3 out of 4 lines inoperable. This sabotage disrupted Germany's energy supply and highlighted the geopolitical vulnerabilities of energy dependence. The event accelerated an ongoing energy crisis, forcing Germany to pivot to alternative suppliers such as the US, Norway, and Qatar, often at significantly higher costs. Who was behind the sabotage? The sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines remains under investigation. Germany, Sweden, and Denmark launched separate probes after the explosions. By February 2024, Sweden and Denmark concluded their investigations without publicly assigning responsibility, citing insufficient evidence. In August 2024, German authorities issued an arrest warrant for a Ukrainian national, identified as Vadir Z, suspected of participating in the sabotage as part of a 6-member team that allegedly used a rented yacht to plant explosives. Reports suggest that Ukraine's commander-in-chief, Valery Z, oversaw the operation with initial approval from President Volodymyr Zelensky, who later attempted to halt the plan. Vadir Z reportedly evaded arrest by fleeing to Ukraine using a vehicle with diplomatic plates, raising questions about Poland's cooperation as he transited through the country. International reactions and speculations. The incident has sparked widespread speculation about the responsible parties. Investigative journalist Seymour Hersh alleged US involvement with Norwegian assistance to weaken Russia's economic influence in Europe, claims that the White House and CIA have denied. Intelligence reports from June 2023 pointed to a pro-Ukrainian group aligning with German investigations that identified Ukrainian nationals as suspects. Environmental and economic impact. The sabotage caused the largest human-made methane release ever recorded, emitting an estimated 465,000 to 485,000 metric tons of methane. This release is nearly 5 times larger than the 2015 Aliso Canyon disaster in California and has a climate impact equivalent to the annual emissions of over 8 million cars. The incident also disrupted marine ecosystems in the Baltic Sea with localized oxygen depletion, creating potential dead zones. Natural gas prices in Europe surged to historic highs following the explosions. By October 2022, prices had reached unprecedented levels, exacerbating economic instability across the continent. Wholesale prices surged by over 200% compared to pre-crisis levels. The Dutch TTF gas futures, Europe's benchmark, reached 342 per megawatt hour in August 2022, a dramatic increase from $16 per megawatt hour in early 2021. This surge was primarily caused by a sudden disruption in supply from Russia, a key energy provider to Europe. The crisis reverberated through global LNG markets as European nations scrambled to secure alternative supplies, intensifying competition with Asian markets and driving global prices even higher. The reduced availability of natural gas further strained supply chains, particularly in industries reliant on gas as a critical input, such as fertilizer production, plastics manufacturing, and energy generation. The sharp rise in energy prices had cascading effects on the broader economy, leading to record inflation rates across Europe. In Germany, inflation peaked at 11.6% in October 2022, the highest level since 1951, with energy and food costs being the primary drivers. Households face soaring energy bills, with the average German household paying 5,000 Euro annually for heating and electricity in 2023, compared to $1,800 in 2021. Rising energy costs also led to higher prices for goods and services, especially in transportation, housing, and food. These inflationary pressures disproportionately affected low-income families, many of whom struggled to afford basic necessities. To alleviate the burden, the German government introduced a $200 billion defensive shield plan, including subsidies and a cap on gas prices for households and businesses. However, critics argued these measures were insufficient to fully mitigate the financial hardships faced by the public. Germany's energy-intensive industries were among the hardest hit by the crisis, as soaring gas prices significantly increased operational costs. The chemical sector, a cornerstone of the country's industrial base, faced major challenges. BASF, one of the world's largest chemical companies, announced production cuts at its flagship Ludwigshafen plant in 2023 due to unsustainable energy costs. Similarly, industries such as steelmaking, automotive manufacturing, and glass production struggled to remain competitive. The automotive sector faced additional pressures as rising energy and material costs, particularly for electric vehicle batteries, undermined profitability. Small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, which form the backbone of Germany's economy, face closures or bankruptcies. Lacking the financial resilience of larger corporations, the energy crisis contributed to a broader economic downturn in Germany. By Q4 2022, the economy contracted by 0.3%, officially entering a recession. Industrial production fell by 6% year-on-year, and export volumes declined as goods became less competitive globally due to higher production costs. The labor market also suffered, with layoffs in energy-intensive industries compounding financial strain on households. Rising utility costs dampened consumer spending, further slowing economic activity. The real estate market was also affected, with energy-efficient properties becoming more desirable, while older buildings with higher energy consumption saw reduced demand, leading to stagnation in the housing market. The energy crisis had profound social and political repercussions, fueling widespread public discontent and protests across Europe. In Germany, movements like the Montag demos gained momentum as citizens rallied against rising living costs and government policies. The crisis strained public trust in political leaders and tested the unity of governing coalitions. On the international stage, it underscored Europe's vulnerability due to its dependence on Russian energy and catalyzed efforts to achieve energy independence. It also strengthened transatlantic ties, with the United States emerging as a key supplier of LNG to Europe. These geopolitical shifts marked a significant turning point in the continent's approach to energy security and sustainability. In late 2024, Ukraine announced its decision not to renew the gas transit contract with Russia, effectively halting the flow of Russian natural gas through Ukrainian pipelines to Europe starting January 1st, 2025. This move marked the end of a pivotal era in Europe's energy landscape. A 40-year energy relationship significantly impacted European countries still reliant on Russian gas supplies. Germany, already working to reduce its dependence on Russian energy, faced further challenges due to this development. To compensate for the loss of pipeline gas, Germany accelerated efforts to import liquefied natural gas, LNG. The German government projected that LNG import capacity would reach 37 billion cubic meters per year by 2024, with plans to double this capacity by 2028. This expansion required substantial investments in new infrastructure, including permanent onshore LNG import terminals, such as the one in Brunsbüttel. The shift to LNG imports introduced higher costs compared to traditional pipeline gas due to expenses related to liquefaction, transportation, and regasification. Despite these challenges, Germany diversified its LNG sources, importing from over 10 countries in 2023, with the United States supplying the majority. This diversification enhanced energy security, but demanded significant financial resources and time to develop the necessary infrastructure. The cessation of Russian gas transit through Ukraine had broader implications for Europe. Slovakia, heavily reliant on Russian gas, faced significant energy security concerns. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico warned that Ukraine's decision could negatively affect Slovak interests, highlighting the geopolitical complexity of regional energy supply. This situation underscored the urgency for European nations to diversify energy sources and invest in alternative infrastructure to reduce reliance on single suppliers and routes. The economic crisis fueled political instability in Germany. Chancellor Olaf Scholz's coalition government, comprising the Social Democrats, Greens, and Free Democratic Party, faced growing internal divisions over budget priorities, foreign policy, and responses to the energy crisis. In November 2024, the coalition collapsed after a contentious budget debate. Key disputes included the Free Democratic Party's opposition to suspending Germany's constitutional debt brake to fund social programs and energy subsidies. Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock criticized Scholz for prioritizing domestic spending over international obligations, particularly military aid to Ukraine. The failure to pass a unified budget led to a loss of confidence in the Bundestag, prompting German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier to dissolve parliament. Snap elections were scheduled for February 23, 2025. The political landscape remains uncertain, with far-right parties like Alternative for Germany gaining traction by capitalizing on public discontent over inflation, energy costs, and migration. Chancellor Scholz dismissed claims that he was sidelining Ukraine to bolster support for his struggling Social Democratic Party ahead of the elections. He defended his approach as consistent with other countries, stating that it was uniquely German to suggest funding Ukraine aid by cutting pensions, reducing local government transfers, or scaling back investments in infrastructure. Critics argued that military aid to Ukraine was draining resources needed to address domestic economic pressures, while others contended that Germany's leadership in Europe required continued support for Ukraine to uphold European security and stability. Foreign Minister Baerbock accused Scholz of delaying decisions on Ukraine aid for political gain, while Scholz maintained that additional spending must be carefully considered to avoid worsening Germany's debt burden. The complex relationship between Germany and Russia remains a focal point in the ongoing debate over energy, politics, and European security.